There's an interesting name we brought up the other day when Ryan and I were chatting about this.
Yes.
And one name we brought up was veteran guard Jamal Crawford. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's looking for a new team. Well, our next guest, Brandon Robinson, Scoop B, as he is affectionately known, Basketball Society. He joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline to give us some more insight. Could there be a marriage here, Brandon? Are we looking at something that makes a lot of sense? Is there a fit for the veteran scoring guard, Jamal Crawford, with the Philadelphia 76ers?
Gentlemen, thanks for having me on for sure. I had Jamal Crawford on the Scoopy Radio podcast today, and he said he would be honored to play for the Philadelphia.
Looks like we don't have Brandon on the line. We'll try to let me punch that back up there. We got you hear me there? Nope, we don't have him here.
Efforting.
Gentlemen.
Oh, there we go. All right, we got you.
Clear as a bell.
What's going on?
Everything is good, man. And we were just talking about Jamal Crawford the other day in light of the injury to Zaire Smith. That, all right, Smith was a guy, to me, Brandon, the offseason for the Sixers, all right, they went after the star. They didn't get him. All right, so they didn't panic. They kind of just went, all right, we'll go down this avenue. And what I think they did was they went to beef up the perimeter defense. They let two guys go that were not great defenders, and they focused on defending the Celtics out on the perimeter, something they had a big problem with in that playoff. So they got Zaire Smith. They went on and got Wilson Chandler. So they're a better defensive team. But now they lose Smith. Could Jamal Crawford possibly be a replacement there?
Yeah, I do think so. I had Jamal Crawford on the Scoopy Radio podcast today. Jamal Crawford said to me, and quote, I would be honored to play for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Did he elaborate on why he said I'd be honored to play for them? I mean, is it more the history of the team or is it the current team? I mean, that's an interesting statement to make for a team that 3 years ago won 10 games,
Well, I think a lot of it is he likes Brett Brown. I talk to a lot of players who just are enamored with Brett Brown. Going into the draft, for example, Kevin Knox said that the two teams he'd like to play for were the Sixers and the Knicks. And, having a relationship with Fizdale as well with the Knicks and Brett Brown on the Philly side. I think also for Jamal Crawford, he has a good relationship with Markelle Fultz, a guy that played in Washington. And he has a good relationship with Ben Simmons, and he played with the Clippers with J.J. Redick. So I think there's a familiarity there. He and Joel Embiid are friends, and I think also if you look at Jamal Crawford, the Golden State Warriors are also interested in him to get more playing time in Philadelphia. He's a guy that can be a lead guard coming off the bench in a six-man role, and I think he'll get more playing time at 38 years old. Close to a 20-year veteran, and he can still play. He's the ageless wonder. And I think really and truly one of the things that he said in the interview was that in Minnesota he wasn't comfortable in Tibbs' offense. A team that's loaded with talent, I think Philadelphia fits more his speed, and you're playing in an Eastern Conference that no longer has LeBron James. The Sixers and the Celtics give him the best chance to go to the finals. And, Golden State, you go there and win a ring, but he loves basketball and he wants to win.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there seemingly is a fit here for him. I mean, I know you look around, this is a team that, I think they went out for defense with Smith and Chandler, but they did lose a little bit of offense when Ilyasova and Bellinelli went out the door. So adding and quite frankly, you mentioned 38 years old. He brings in a professional guy that could really, balance out this roster.
For sure. And I think when you talk about the Bellinelli part, I think there are some intangibles that Crawford brings to the table that maybe Bellinelli doesn't bring. Obviously, Bellinelli can shoot the lights out. He's a shooter for hire, so to speak. But I think Jamal Crawford can create his own shot, if you will. He's an older Kyrie Irving, a guy that can shoot, create his own shot, and can run an offense as well. And when you want to go tall. Or go, medium, not necessarily, totally big, but I think, there are times, going to the Wells Fargo Center throughout the season, particularly last year, were times where Ben Simmons sat out and you had T.J. McConnell in. I'd love to see a pairing of those two guys together, Ben Simmons and Jamal Crawford, but also, T.J. I think it's a good match.
Well, it's interesting because we're talking with Brandon Robinson, Scoop B from the Basketball Society Scoop B podcast. You just talked with Jamal Crawford, and you asked him about if he were to go there with J.J. Redick, having those two guys, do you think that the shooting touch would rub off on a guy like Ben Simmons?
Yeah, and he said steel sharpens steel.
Yeah, exactly. Steel sharpens steel. And, I guess another thing would be, how about Markelle Fultz? I mean, we're not sure what his jump shot might look like when he comes back. All accounts, it's all pretty good. But having Crawford around could be a nice backup in the case that Fultz isn't sharpened, I guess you could say.
I mean, and let's not be mistaken. I mean, the Jamal Crawford played for a playoff deep Atlanta Hawks some years ago, a team that had Joe Johnson,
60 win.
Had Mike. There you go, Mike Bibby, and some of those other guys. He also said in the interview how much he liked Philadelphia. You asked me a question previously. I want to make sure I give it his due diligence. He said that he was a huge fan of Allen Iverson. He had to cut about 25 to 30 pictures of him and put them on his wall. He's a huge fan of Allen Iverson. He loves the city. He thinks the Philadelphia fans are passionate. And he said he wants to get a cheesesteak. I told him Passaginos, but I think he could step it up a little bit with Pagano's on South Street.
Jim's, D'Alessandro's, throw out some more up.
There's a lot of goodies out there. All right, he says he'd be honored to play there. I like their city, how they're into basketball. He said, I always loved their coach, Brown. There's so many things to love about Philly. That was via the Scoop B Radio. You talked to Jamal Crawford. The one thing is that him being a free agent, did he say that he was kind of being selective and that's why he's still a free agent? I mean, was there some interest in him in that first round of free agency?
Well, yeah, I asked him about the Lakers. I asked him if there was real legitimate interest with the Lakers. Obviously, the Lakers bringing LeBron James, signing Michael Beasley, Lance Stevenson, some of those other pieces. He says there was some interest there, but it kind of fell on the wayside. But I will tell you this, a leak source shared with me just yesterday that one of the biggest issues as to why Jamal Crawford specifically has not become, this source told me that essentially they're trying to move Jared Bayless. They don't want to just get rid of him or not lose anything. So if the Sixers are able to rid themselves of Jared Bayless, Jamal Crawford will become a Philadelphia 76er.
We know that was rumored, Brandon, when they were trying to make a move for LeBron James, that they were going to have to get Bayless out, and they never ended up getting to that point. But Bayless, again, seemingly a key factor, which is kind of ironic because for all those years, Sam Hinkie refused to sign those 3-year mid-level veteran players. The first move that Colangelo makes is bringing in that guy, and he seemingly is the guy that's blocking them from making a couple of moves.
Man, we went from trusting the process to listening to burner accounts to still being screwed anyway. We can't win.
All right, Sixers interested. Now, do you think there is interest from the Sixers? You just said that the Bayless thing might stand in the way, so there is legitimate interest from the Sixers side of things here.
Yes. I broke the story initially on Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. These days are like all together now, but I broke the story one of those days, Tuesday, Wednesday. My source told me that there is interest on the side of the Sixers, and, reached out to Jamal, had him on the podcast, and Jamal is mutually interested. And if you go back to just early July, I know Keith Pompey had reported it and a few other people reported it, that the Sixers did have interest. The Zaire Smith thing does intensify things. And I think at the end of the day, there are other teams, or I know there are other teams that are interested in Jamal Crawford, mainly the Golden State Warriors. Like they need any more scorers on their team. But I will tell you that, in speaking to Jamal Crawford on the Scoop B Radio podcast, for those listening, scoopbradio.com, you can check that out. But one of the things he said was he wants to play. If you're playing for the Warriors, how much time are you really going to get on a glut of talent, particularly at the guard position? So you look at the Sixers, Zaire Smith is out. You do have J.J. Redick. You have Ben Simmons. You have those guys. But Jamal Crawford, like I said previously, has the chance to really star and freelance, if you will, on a team that needs veteran leadership. He would almost be like their guard version of Elton Brand, but actually has a lot left in the tank.
Yeah, that would be an interesting ad. As a guy we discussed, I think on Monday or Tuesday when the news came around about Zaire Smith breaking that foot, of guys who were still available, and his name was at the top of that list. Brandon Robinson at Scoop B on Twitter, the host of the Scoop B Radio podcast, scoopb.com, Basketball Society. He writes there as well. And he's reporting that the Sixers and Jamal Crawford both have interest. A couple things need to happen, mainly that contract of Jared Bayless sneaking back in here.
There it is.
And, of course, we'll see if Crawford could, agree to a contract, and we'll see. That could be a good fit. And we appreciate Brandon jumping on board the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thanks so much, man.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me, and I look forward to talking to you down the line.